And so how did you initiate your work with that? That was a great description of its beginnings. And then what did you start to do?
Well, when I came in, the first thing that I did was look at how were we doing interventions? How are we supporting students that had needs, and how well were the teachers implementing the blocks? Was what we were saying we were doing happening? And so just number one, being new, getting to know people and just kind of watching and seeing what was going on, and then also looking at our AIMSWeb data and our the SBA data for the 3rd grade and up, and identifying kids that were at risk, and then asking, okay, so we've got this pocket of kids, what are we doing to support them? And what we decided to do was working with the Title I. We have a district-wide Title I person who travels to all the sites, as well as myself working as the instructional coach. We set up a pull-out plan for the Tier 3 kids, where they are getting a pull-out intervention 30 minutes a day, 4 days a week from us. And then the 5th day, the teachers are providing that in the class, only for the Tier 3 kids.
Okay.
And so that's been kind of my part of this, coming in and saying, okay, let's identify these kids and start helping them.
Okay. And so she comes in, and this is at the Toke building.
This is at Toke in the building.
Okay.
And they were able to, because they had grant money, each teacher has, or each grade level group of teachers had instructional grants, and what they did is they took their instructional grants, pooled it together at the first, second, third, 4th, 5th teacher. They pulled their grant so that they could hire another aide, only they were really fortunate because the aide they hired is a certified teacher. So they share this one aide, and she does also intervention pull-out. So they've got an extra body, but that was because they were willing to pool their grant money.
Put their grant money
It was
in.
really a cool way to use it.
Great. So they have treasures,
Yep.
and they have 4 blocks, and your job was to increase the effectiveness and scale of the implementation. To
Yes.
bring it to full implementation.
Right, and also because they brought in Triumphs, which is the intervention component
Yes.
of Treasures, and that was brand new this year,
Okay.
was to help people understand how to use that
Okay.
in the class, and then also we use it as the Tier 3 intervention.
Okay.
So those kids are getting double dose of that.
Okay, excellent. And what were your implementation challenges, Dawn, as you began to do this?
Well, number one being brand new.
Uh-huh.
And I have worked with other programs, but I had not worked specifically with this program, so learning the nuances of it. And also then getting scheduling is always a nightmare. Getting those kids grouped, and then making sure that there was somebody who could teach, either myself or Dana, the Title I teacher, so that the kids were getting consistent 4 days a week intervention. And then also the getting teachers to be willing to, and fitting into their schedule, doing Triumphs in the classroom too, because we are Tier 3. And so that means those kids need an intervention, a Tier 2 intervention in the classroom.
Right.
And that was, it was, I guess in some ways for some teachers it was a little bit of different thinking, because I think it's easy to say, well, that person's going out, they're getting an intervention, so
Right.
that's good. And no, we're number 3.
Right.
You still need to be providing in the classroom.
Right.
And that's where Erica's kind of been picking up the slack too, so that's been a great help.
So really helping them understand what the 3-tier system is.
Correct.
Understanding that core is what everybody gets, which is treasures.
Right.
And that Triumphs, which is a Tier 2 intervention, is their materials and supports, but the time allocation and the person delivering it is the teacher.
Right.
And that you are bringing in the final supplemental support, which was Tier 3, and having the buy-in for that, and the scheduling and logistics, all that was a challenge.
Yes.
Yeah. And how would you say you brought people along in that process to be able to have them move through the change process with you?
I think we've been pretty successful. I would say we're 90% successful.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, you always have a little bit of kickback, but I think for the most part, we've got our interventions going and we're seeing results. And that's been the exciting part, is to hear a teacher say, hey, did you see my progress monitoring this week? Yeah, I did. And look, your kids are really popping up. And be able to That to me is the best advertisement for this working, is a teacher saying, my kids grew in progress monitoring because we're doing it this way.
Right.
And so we're seeing that, and that's been really exciting.
Excellent. So the results that they saw are, are keeping them excited, encouraged, and reinforced.
Yes.
So what do you think over time? So it's pretty new.
Yes.
But what do you think it will take for sustainability?
I want to see 100% on board.
Uh-huh.
I want every elementary teacher to be on board. I would like to see, I would really like to see next year, I would like to see it 5 days a week instead of 4 days a week. I think also getting a true RTI system in place where it is a separate function of the PLCs, not as part of the PLCs, but as its own entity being done weekly or bi-weekly within the school, so that none of the kids are able to slip through the cracks. That's a component I think that's going to help really keep this moving forward, because it keeps the eye on, we still have red kids, we still need to be putting those interventions in. Or look, these red kids have moved down to where, now they're yellows or they're greens, and this is working. I think success is going to be the biggest component for keeping this moving forward.
So when you think about your results, and I heard you say PLCs, how often do PLCs take place?
PLCs are weekly.
Okay.
And they are broken into at the elementary end, they are K through 2, 3 through 5, and then the middle school and high school do their separate.
Okay.
And so what the different strands talk about is, kind of dependent on their needs at that area. The thing, when you only have an hour a week, I don't feel, and this is my own personal belief, is that I don't feel you can adequately devote enough time to monitoring those kids. I think that it's too easy to let too long go by and not catch everybody. I think that you have to have an RTI system in place where the kids are, you're just looking at data once a week, so that nobody's slipping, through the cracks.
So when you say that's what you'd like to see the PLCs transition to, so that they actually really look at that data and it doesn't get compromised with other topics?
No, I'd like to see the PLCs stay PLCs, professional learning communities, and I would like to see RTI shift off and be a separate meeting, which is really hard to ask,
right?
Because people don't want to do 2 meetings.
Right.
But the reality is I think that that's how it functions best, is when you have a designated group of people just looking at data once a week.
Checking with kids.
Yeah, and checking in.